In the shadowed underbelly of Prohibition-era America, where the roar of Tommy guns echoed through rain-slicked streets and fear gripped the hearts of the wealthy, one name struck terror like a thunderclap: George "Machine Gun" Kelly. Picture him lurking in the dead of night, a silhouette clutching a gleaming submachine gun, his eyes cold with ambition and desperation. Who was this man who rose from obscurity to become a symbol of ruthless crime, masterminding kidnappings that shook the nation and evading the law's grasp until the bitter end? Dive into the twisted tale of a bootlegger turned kidnapper whose life of glamour and violence led straight to the unyielding walls of America's most infamous prisons, leaving a legacy shrouded in myth and menace. The story of George "Machine Gun" Kelly begins not in the gritty alleys of a criminal underworld, but in the sun-drenched streets of Memphis, Tennessee, a city humming with the rhythms of the Mississippi River and the promise of Southern prosperity. Born George Kelly Barnes on July 18, 1895, to a respectable middle-class family, young George entered a world far removed from the chaos he would later embrace. His father, an insurance executive named George Barnes Sr., provided a comfortable life in a modest two-story home in the Central Gardens neighborhood, where manicured lawns and bustling streetcars painted a picture of stability. His mother, Elizabeth Kelly Barnes, came from a lineage of Irish immigrants who had carved out a foothold in the cotton-rich South, instilling in her son a sense of family pride amid the era's economic fluctuations. From an early age, George exhibited a restless spirit, one that clashed with the structured expectations of his upbringing. As a child, he roamed the vibrant Memphis docks, watching steamboats unload cargo and listening to tales from river workers about far-off adventures. The city itself was a melting pot of influences, jazz spilling from Beale Street clubs, the scent of barbecue mingling with the humid air, and the stark divide between wealth and poverty shaping his worldview. Yet his home life was marked by discipline. His parents emphasized education as the key to upward mobility, enrolling him in Idlewild Elementary and later Central High School. There, George was an average student at best, more interested in mischief than textbooks. He formed loose friendships with neighborhood boys, engaging in harmless pranks like skipping stones across the river or sneaking into vaudeville shows, but nothing hinted at the darkness ahead. His personality was charismatic yet impulsive, a boy who dreamed of excitement beyond the confines of school bells and family dinners. As adolescence gave way to young adulthood, George's life took a pivotal turn. In 1917, at the age of 22, he enrolled at Mississippi Agricultural and Mechanical College, now Mississippi State University in Starkville, intending to study agriculture. The rolling hills of the campus offered a stark contrast to Memphis's urban pulse, but George struggled immensely. His grades were dismal. The highest mark he earned was a C+ in physical hygiene, while demerits piled up for tardiness, arguments with professors, and a general disdain for authority. The rigid academic environment felt like a cage to him, stifling his freewheeling nature. It was here, amid the frustrations of college life, that he met Geneva Ramsey, a bright-eyed young woman from a similar Southern background. Their romance blossomed quickly, fueled by shared dreams of a life unburdened by rules. In an impulsive decision that mirrored his personality, George dropped out of school in 1919 and married Geneva in a simple ceremony, hoping to build a future together. The early years of marriage brought both joy and hardship. The couple settled back in Memphis, where George took on a series of odd jobs to support them, first as a commissary clerk in a local store, then as a used car salesman, and even a brief stint as a cab driver navigating the city's bustling streets. They welcomed 2 sons, adding warmth to their home, but also mounting pressures. The roaring 20s were dawning, with World War I's shadow fading and economic booms promising opportunity, yet George felt trapped in mediocrity. His dreams of grandeur, perhaps inspired by the lavish lifestyles he glimpsed among Memphis's elite, clashed with the drudgery of daily work. Struggles mounted as the Prohibition era began in 1920, banning alcohol and creating a black market ripe for exploitation. George's restlessness grew. He began associating with shady figures and speakeasies, drawn to the allure of quick money. His marriage to Geneva frayed under the strain, leading to a divorce in 1926 after years of arguments and financial woes. By then, George had dipped his toes into minor infractions like petty theft or running errands for bootleggers, influenced by the pervasive corruption in Memphis, where police often turned a blind eye to illicit dealings. These formative years painted a portrait of a man shaped by contradiction, a boy from privilege who yearned for more, a student who rebelled against structure, a husband who couldn't commit to stability. The South's cultural blend of hospitality and hardship molded his mindset, embedding a sense of entitlement mixed with resentment toward authority. Friends from those days recalled him as affable, with a quick laugh and a penchant for storytelling, but beneath it lurked an undercurrent of dissatisfaction. As the 1920s progressed, the siren call of Prohibition's underground economy became irresistible. George's early influences, from river tales of adventure to the economic disparities he witnessed, planted seeds of ambition that would soon sprout into a life of crime. Little did he know, these seemingly ordinary struggles were forging the path to his infamous alias, transforming a dreamer into a desperado. As the grip of Prohibition tightened across America, George Kelly Barnes found himself at a crossroads, his mundane existence crumbling under the weight of unfulfilled dreams. The divorce from Geneva left him adrift, and the allure of easy money in the bootlegging trade proved too tempting to resist. It started small, in the hidden stills and backroom deals of Memphis, where George began smuggling liquor across state lines, evading revenue agents with a growing network of shady contacts. His first brushes with the law came in the mid-1920s, minor arrests for possession and distribution, slaps on the wrist that only fueled his defiance. But as police scrutiny intensified in Tennessee, George fled westward, adopting the alias George R. Kelly to shield his family from scandal and dodge warrants. This marked his full descent into the criminal world, a transition born not from sudden villainy, but from a gradual erosion of morals, driven by the era's lawlessness and his own thirst for excitement. In the dusty towns of Oklahoma and New Mexico, Kelly honed his craft as a bootlegger, partnering with small-time operators to transport whiskey from hidden distilleries to thirsty speakeasies. His reputation grew modestly. He was known as reliable, if unremarkable, navigating the dangerous routes patrolled by federal agents. But a fateful arrest in 1928 shattered this low-profile existence. Caught smuggling liquor onto an Indian reservation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Kelly was sentenced to 3 years at Leavenworth Penitentiary. Inside those foreboding walls, he encountered hardened criminals who schooled him in the arts of evasion and ambition. Released early in 1930 for good behavior, Kelly emerged transformed, not reformed, but emboldened. It was during this period that he met Kathryn Thorne, a twice-divorced woman with a criminal past of her own, including check forgery and running a brothel. They married in September 1930, and Kathryn became the catalyst for his escalation. Ambitious and cunning, she purchased him a Thompson submachine gun, insisting he practice despite his initial reluctance. She crafted his legend, spreading tales in underground circles of Machine Gun Kelly, the fearless gangster who wielded his weapon with deadly precision. This nickname, more myth than reality at first, stuck and propelled him into notoriety.
With Kathryn's influence, Kelly's crimes evolved from bootlegging to bolder ventures. They began with armed robberies, targeting banks in the Midwest, where the Great Depression had left institutions vulnerable. In 1931, Kelly and a loose gang hit a bank in Tupelo, Mississippi, making off with thousands in cash amid a hail of bullets, though Kelly himself rarely fired his signature gun, preferring intimidation over violence. These heists built his confidence, but they also drew attention from local lawmen. A turning point came in 1932 when Kelly allegedly participated in the kidnapping of Howard Wolverton, a wealthy Indiana businessman. held for less than a day and released after a $50,000 ransom demand, though little was paid. This incident tested the waters of a lucrative new crime wave sweeping the nation. Kidnapping, fueled by the Lindbergh baby's tragic abduction earlier that year, offered high rewards with perceived low risk, and Kelly saw it as his ticket to wealth. The pinnacle of his criminal career, and the act that sealed his infamy, unfolded in the sweltering summer of 1933. On July 22nd, Kelly and accomplice Albert Bates stormed the Oklahoma City home of oil tycoon Charles F. Urschel, a millionaire whose fortune symbolized the era's oil boom. Armed with pistols and Kelly's machine gun, they abducted Urschel and his friend Walter Jarrett during a bridge game, blindfolding them and driving into the night. Jarrett was released unharmed with a warning, but Urschel was transported to a remote farmhouse in Paradise, Texas, owned by Kathryn's stepfather, R.G. Boss Shannon. There, blindfolded and chained, Urschel endured 9 days of captivity, memorizing every detail: the hum of airplanes overhead, the rhythm of roosters crowing, the footsteps of his guards. The Kellys demanded $200,000, the largest ransom at the time, delivered through coded newspaper ads and a tense exchange in Kansas City. Urschel's family paid, and he was freed on July 31st, stumbling to a phone booth in Norman, Oklahoma, to alert authorities. This brazen act catapulted Kelly into the national spotlight, but it also unraveled his empire. The FBI, under J. Edgar Hoover, mobilized a massive manhunt, tracing clues from Urschel's sharp recollections. As ransom money surfaced in banks, accomplices like Bates and the Shannons were arrested, their confessions tightening the noose. Kelly and Kathryn fled, burying loot on Texas ranches and hiding in Memphis with relatives. But betrayal loomed. A tip from a family member led agents to their doorstep. On September 26, 1933, in a pre-dawn raid, Kelly surrendered without a fight, his hands raised as he reportedly uttered, "Don't shoot, G-men," a phrase that immortalized FBI agents. The capture exposed the fragility of his legend. The man behind the machine gun was more opportunist than monster, driven by Kathryn's manipulations and the Depression's desperation. His crimes, once shrouded in mystery, now lay bare in FBI files, revealing a path of escalating audacity that ended in handcuffs. The net closed swiftly on George Machine Gun Kelly following the Urschel kidnapping, transforming the once elusive gangster into a symbol of federal triumph. With Urschel's meticulous details guiding investigators, airplane schedules pinpointing the Texas hideout, fingerprints on farm utensils confirming his presence, the FBI dismantled the operation piece by piece. Accomplices fell like dominoes: Albert Bates in Denver, the Shannons in Paradise, and buried ransom money unearthed on ranches. Kelly and Kathryn, desperate and on the run, sought refuge in Memphis, but a relative's tip betrayed them. On that fateful September morning in 1933, agents burst into their hideout. Kelly, cornered and unarmed, raised his hands in surrender, his mythic bravado crumbling. Whisked to Oklahoma City under heavy guard, they faced trial in a federal courthouse buzzing with reporters and cameras, a historic first for filmed proceedings. Convicted of kidnapping under the new Lindbergh law, both received life sentences on October 12, 1933, their pleas falling on deaf ears amid public outrage over the crime wave. Kelly's incarceration began at Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in Kansas, a sprawling fortress of stone and steel where the Midwest winds howled through barbed wire fences. Arriving in chains, he was stripped of his gangster persona, assigned a number, and thrust into a routine designed to break spirits. But Kelly adapted surprisingly well, earning a reputation as a model inmate from the start. Gone was the machine gun-wielding outlaw. In his place emerged a quiet, cooperative man who avoided trouble. Transferred in 1934 to the newly opened Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, The Rock off San Francisco's Foggy Bay, Kelly faced America's most escape-proof prison, built to house the nation's worst offenders. The island's isolation, surrounded by treacherous currents, amplified the sense of finality.
His cell, a narrow 9 by 5 foot space with a steel bunk, sink, and toilet, overlooked the cold Pacific, a constant reminder of lost freedom. Daily life was regimented. Wake up at 6:30 a.m. to the clang of bells, meals in the echoing mess hall under watchful guards, and labor in the prison industries, laundry, woodworking, or shoe repair to earn meager privileges.
Inside Alcatraz, Kelly's behavior defied expectations. Far from the violent thug of tabloid lore, he was meek and unassuming, earning the mocking nickname Pop Gun Kelly from fellow inmates for his tall tales and lack of aggression. He spun stories of his exploits, exaggerating robberies and kidnappings like a harmless fabulist, much to the amusement of notorious figures like Al Capone and Robert Stroud, the Birdman of Alcatraz. Interactions with these men were limited. Alcatraz enforced silence during work and meals, but Kelly occasionally shared whispers in the yard, discussing news clippings smuggled in or plotting hypothetical escapes that never materialized. The prison atmosphere was oppressive. Dim lights flickering in concrete corridors, the distant crash of waves mocking any hope of flight, and guards patrolling with rifles ready to quash unrest. Kelly witnessed failed escape attempts, like the 1937 breakout by Theodore Cole and Ralph Rowe, who vanished into the sea, presumed drowned. Yet he made none himself, content with his routine and perhaps resigned to his fate, influenced by the psychological toll of isolation. As years dragged on, Kelly's health declined amid the damp cells and monotonous days. He worked diligently in the Model Industries building, assembling brushes or mending clothes, finding solace in small tasks that echoed his pre-crime jobs. Letters from Kathryn, serving her own life term at a women's facility, offered fleeting connection, though censored by wardens. The 1940s brought subtle changes, World War II news filtering in via radio broadcasts, boosting morale with Allied victories, but Alcatraz remained a tomb of the living. By 1951, after 17 years on the Rock, Kelly's exemplary conduct earned a transfer back to Leavenworth, where conditions were slightly less severe, larger cells, more recreational time in the yard under Kansas skies. Here, he continued his quiet existence, reading books on history and agriculture, remnants of his aborted college dreams. No longer the feared kidnapper, he became a faded relic, his interactions with inmates cordial but distant. This chapter of confinement, marked by introspection rather than rebellion, led inexorably toward the twilight of his life, a stark contrast to the adrenaline-fueled crimes that had landed him there. As the 1950s dawned, George "Machine Gun" Kelly's once notorious life had faded into the monotonous grind of prison existence, his body bearing the scars of 2 decades behind bars. Transferred back to Leavenworth in 1951, he settled into a quieter routine, his health eroded by years of institutional food, limited exercise, and the cumulative stress of incarceration. Kelly, now in his late 50s, complained of chest pains and fatigue, symptoms dismissed at first by prison doctors amid the era's rudimentary medical care. He spent his days in the library or workshop, reflecting on a path that had led from Memphis streets to federal infamy. Correspondence with family grew sparse. His ex-wife Geneva had moved on, and Kathryn, still imprisoned, offered words of enduring loyalty. On July 18, 1954, his 59th birthday, Kelly suffered a massive heart attack in his cell. Guards found him collapsed, and despite rushed efforts, he was pronounced dead that evening, his end as unceremonious as his capture had been dramatic. The cause was ruled natural, a quiet exit for a man whose life had been defined by noise and notoriety. Public reaction was muted. The gangster era had long passed, eclipsed by post-war prosperity and new threats like the Cold War. Newspapers ran brief obituaries, recalling the Urschel kidnapping as a footnote in FBI history rather than a sensational saga. Kathryn, paroled in 1958 after appeals in good behavior, lived out her days in obscurity in Oklahoma under an alias, dying in 1985 at 81. Kelly's body was buried in Cottondale Cemetery, Texas, in a simple plot belonging to Kathryn's family, marked by a modest headstone reading George B. Kelly, 1954. No throngs mourned him. Instead, his passing symbolized the closure of Prohibition's wild chapter, where outlaws like him had briefly ruled the shadows. History remembers George Machine Gun Kelly not as a bloodthirsty monster, but as a complex figure, a product of Depression-era desperation, amplified by myth and media. Often portrayed as a bumbling opportunist rather than a mastermind, his legacy hinges on the Urschel case, which empowered the FBI with expanded jurisdiction and tools to combat interstate crime. J. Edgar Hoover used Kelly's arrest to bolster the Bureau's image, coining G-men as heroes against public enemies. Yet psychological depth reveals a man driven by insecurity. Influenced by Kathryn's ambitions, he chased a fabricated toughness, committing crimes without the murders that defined peers like Dillinger or Capone. In films like 1958's Machine Gun Kelly, starring Charles Bronson, he's depicted as a swaggering anti-hero, while novels and comics explore his vulnerabilities. Modern culture echoes his name in rapper Machine Gun Kelly, who adopted it for its edgy allure. Ultimately, Kelly stands as a cautionary legend, a dreamer corrupted by greed, whose story warns of ambition's dark side in America's turbulent past. In the end, as the echoes of his machine gun fade into silence, we're left to ponder: was he a villain forged by circumstance, or simply a man who fired blanks in a world of real bullets? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more stories from the dark past of America's most notorious criminals.